Yeah, I was just about to explain the circumcision, like in Amang Varemba, it's a person who is responsible of circumcising kids. It's known as Mulan, who is a chief, Whereas among Sotho Tswana people, such as Bapedi, the person could be called can be called Ramadia. It's known as Ramadia, meaning the enabler of circumcision. Whereas among Batswana, previously, Batswana would call this person Ratladi. It's an independent Murupishi. It's just independent person whom community trust to carry this ritual. Remember, among the northern Sotho, heterogeneous northern Sotho and western Sothos, the circumcisions, I explained that among Waremba, it's a ritual. Even this one, though it's a rite of passage, is associated with concept of stoholo. Stoholo. It's a family heirlooms. It's a generational heirlooms. It's carried from one generation to another. So the issue of money, you have to pay a lot of money, dress in design clothes, expensive alcohol, beer, women, no. So this Wabina Koma, especially among Sotho groups, they don't actually, they practice avoidance rules that don't do this. When you are in during the season of Koma, which is basically the season of Koma, it's October. I'll explain. It starts October, November, and December. That's the season of Koma, and it's actually 6 months. So many historians they credit the Sotho Tswana of South African Highveld. Very important statement as the first Bantu people to practice mass circumcisions, because these Sotho Tswana people stay in the large settlement known as large settlement, which is a village known as Motsi. Whereas if you look around Nguni people are scattered. Whereas the Venda people stay in the clans. Whereas Sotho Tswana people are grouped together. More than 1,000 people will stay in the village known as Motsi. Whereas Vendas are scattered, coastal Ngunis are also scattered. So historians postulate that maybe they believe that these are the first people to practice mass circumcisions in South African history. Another thing that is very important to note is that historians also claim that these Bantu people in South Africa, they come in succession of migration waves, whereby first people to arrive in South Africa, where archaeologists discovered that there are Sotho Tswana people to arrive in South Africa. The migration of Sotho Tswana was preceded by the Nguni migrations. That's why today when it go to Swaziland, these people occupy Swaziland, they occupy the inland of South Africa. These are the Sotho Tswana people, including other parts of around South Africa. These are I'm talking about the Sotho Tswana people. This information was also, it's available from his historical archives, supported by oral testimony, gathered by missionaries, the earliest missionaries to arrive in South Africa. And then the first people to meet missionaries, as you know, that to meet Europeans were Khoisan and followed by coastal Ngunis. And then the Europeans met Sotho Tswana later, especially the Tswana people. And then you have to remember that just to return back to what I mentioned earlier on about the circumcision among Basutus. Most Basutu people, Southern Sotho, are the product of the Fekane, or the so-called the conflict of the conflict that caused unrest in the 19th century, early 19th century, in the Highveld of South Africa. I think you know these things where King Mushweshwe, play a major role on uniting people. They were refugees. The refugees of different groups. Some Sotho Tswana, some of them were basically Ngunis. If you look at the historical documents and archives, there is no reference of Basotho practicing circumcision prior 1900. And then, however, one of the earliest missionaries to meet Basotho was Dr. Ellenbeck. The reason he recorded the very things that happened before he met them. He recorded a lot of things. I don't want to go in detail, but if you read some report about Dr. Allenberg, or the first person to meet Basotho, you'll read what he said. So that's the reason why missionaries saw that it's very important to introduce circumcision among Basotho, because they want to foster what you call identity among Basothos. They adopted Botswana systems. So Basotho circumcision probably is run almost approximately 6 months. So the system that adopted is a Tswana systems. It's a Botswana systems. So they took refugee, they encouraged circumcision. At the same point, they discourage it among Botswana because they suspect that circumcision is more like a military. Because I'll explain further why people suspect that this circumcision was military. Another point that is very important to highlight is among Tsonga. Tsonga people practice circumcision. They call it kamatlala or matlala or goma or stuff like that. Now the circumcision among Tsonga or Shangaan was introduced by Bakoni. Bakoni from Matlala. Bakoni are auxiliary tribes. Just like in Ndebele, they are auxiliary tribe of Sotho Tswana. They stay with Sotho Tswana tribes in Highveld and in Limpopo. So they are auxiliary tribe. They adopted it. They are the one who taught Tsonga people. That's why you go today among Shangaan or Tsonga people, they will tell it Kamatlala. The word Matlala, Kamatlala or Matlala in Tsonga circumcision is from Matlala. The first people who used to be hired to go and perform this raid among Tsonga, earliest raid of the circumcision were the Koni people. Hence, it's called Kwamatala by Shangaan. So among the Venda, it was also introduced by Rembas because of proximities. You know, the mass circumcision among the Venda, which was also encouraged by missionaries, started by 1902. Same period among Basotho was also started to be popular. It's 1902 was a very important issue where it was later rejected. Firstly, many Venda people rejected it, you know, because it was not their cultures. People were introducing it, but later it was popularized by some Venda prominent leaders. So, and then it was actually adopted. That's why today, when you enter circumcision among the Venda, you'll find that they use Northern Sotho, a mixture of Northern Sotho and Tswana. Milao, ya gona bo khwabatla ke moeng ke tswa gole o macha bana ka khora ritsena ka sebelebele. Those milao, you can find them among the Venda. They are mostly among Sotho Tswana. Those milao are also be used, you know, they are also being used among the vendors. Now, as I earlier indicated that this circumcision, actually 3 schools of circumcision that helped to spread circumcision. Returning back to the issue of Ndebeles, which many people like missionary people are familiar with Ndebeles, who are actually proud of practicing it. Like I said, Ndebeles are auxiliary tribe of Sotho Tswana, and we have to understand that the Ndebele from Zimbabwe and the Ndebele from Limpopo and Mpumalanga are not related to the Ndebele from Zimbabwe. They are not related, as historians would like us to believe. The Ndebeles from Limpopo and the Highveld, they are Sotho-sized. Their culture is a northern Sotho, or probably sometimes could be Botswanas. Historians could be able to prove these things, you know. So the Sotho Tswana people that emerge as the ones that practice that circumcision, their influence of circumcision is in different provinces. Actually, they share characteristic. These characteristics, some of them are linguistically. And then, so trying to trace basically where this circumcision come from, whether it was developed internally within the country or it's coming from outside. So I come to conclusion that this circumcision, it appeared to be something that coming from outside South Africa. You know, as I said, that the Sotho Tswana people were the first Bantu people to arrive in the inland, or to occupy inland of South Africa, and the migration of the Sotho Tswana preceded that of the coastal Ngunis. Now, many historians and cultural observers, they believe that there is cultural similarities between ancient Egyptians and the Sotho Tswana people. These remarkable similarities with the ancient Egyptians is in the form of for example, sun, the sun god. For example, if you go to Botswana, who practice circumcision, they'll tell you that a person who's responsible of circumcision is Ratladi, whereas among various group of Northern Sotho, it's a Ramadia. So the word Re, it's a father, ne? The word Re, it's a father, whereas the same Re, it's a god in Egyptian, it's an Egyptian god. It's also used within the Sotho Tswana people. These Sotho Tswana people, they also observe the moon festivals, so which is actually associated with the lunar calendar. Lunar calendar, which is basically, you can, if you've been to circumcision, you understand that the circumcision, actually, when it starts, there are some ritual that are being performed. When it comes to an end, they'll tell you that don't look back, and then when they're burning some lodge, those are the part of, you can see that are familiar, that are associated with the lunar calendar, or moon, or moon, or the issue of the moon. These calendars that basically, which people say it's a lunar calendar, it's associated to Tswana, it's also used to identify the time that circumcision should take place, because you got to remember that the circumcision, is the period that is used currently, like it's supposed to take place around winter. That's not original calendar of Sotho Tswana people. It's against Sotho Tswana people calendar. The winter, it's not. The real time period, it starts from October. Probably it's end around, I think October is known as Dipelane, or in the Sotho Tswana language, it's Moranang, it's April, which is when it has to start. Probably, if you calculate, it's more or less 6 months. It has to take 6 months. I think Basotho still observe the same, this moon, lunar calendars that is basically still be used by Basothos. Now, the circumcision, like I said, is that it's not a child play. This is a very, very sophisticated school. I will explain later what do you mean by this school is very sophisticated. Remember, things that are associated with girls falling pregnant during the circumcision, people go sleeping around, drinking, wearing design. It's not a part of circumcision schools. Circumcision school, it's a communal project. Everybody who is Mbabina Kwena, who can practice, is accepted to participate. You can refuse to take part. Nobody will force you. There's a concept that says that Ochabela Komeng. Ochabela Komeng, it's invented. It's invented traditions. It's invented tradition. It's not common. Because why Ochabela Komeng? Because you have got access. If you don't like, you can refuse. Nobody can punish you. If it's not your culture, you can't be forced to participate in Koma. So therefore, Ochabela Komeng, you can't do that because Koma Kisituholo. So, like I said, following a lunar calendar, that's in traditional calendars of Sotho Tswana, which has got 4 seasons, and then this people there, the participants are expected, to spend the duration of 6 months, like probably from October to April, between there. Because this time I could remember around April when they come back, there'll be a lot of food, so on and so forth, And the expectation is that when people go to circumcisions, they have to go there as a group. And they're a group of things, It's only take place once a year. So when you find a situation where every month is a circumcision, every week is a circumcision, just know that this is not a traditional circumcision. It's not an indigenous. That's one, it's a material benefit. Somebody just open a shack in the hospital, he goes there, he open a shack somewhere and say that he's opening circumcision. Just suspect their blood or is there a tradition to practice, they're not going to be forced. And you can't call them by the name, because where I stay or where I live, people are not from my own tribe, don't practice circumcision. No. If you hear people talking about because someone doesn't go to circumcision who doesn't belong to the tribe, it's not a traditional, it's not like that. You can only become Leshoboro if you belong to that tribes that practice circumcision, if you didn't go there. But if you're outsider, you can't be called Leshoboro, you can't be punished, you can't be abducted, you can't be insulted. And then traditional healers, they play roles. Many people know that we've been coming that they use moti. Moti is used extensively. So I'm not just speaking like someone who just outsider. No, between 1994 and 1998, I used to visit Komeng frequently. So it's not because I'll explain why. I'll explain further, and I'll give you some sort of lines of Molao to show that myself I am familiar with Goma, because I know that many people will just listen here like, no, I'll just give you some 2 lines to explain that I know the inside of Goma in and out. No, I'm just not speaking as an outsider, no. So I'm speaking to someone, everybody who could recognize me could be able to identify that, no, he's telling the truth. Most peers that I went to school with them or stay with them, they'll be able to recognize me. They will understand that, okay, this is our boys, he understand. Now, Goma is a very sophisticated school, like I said earlier on. It has got, there are various departments that are created within Goma structures. There's administration. The most common is administrations. When the new guys who are not circumcised, before they go to circumcision, they'll have to be taken from a home and to second places, and they'll then be taken to the surgery room, reception. From there, they'll be taken to surgery room. And then there's also another aspect of culture, which is the mentorship and responsibility, where people are assigned who are supposed to take care of people within Goma, and there is a scenario systems within Goma. So they are ranked there. So they are ranked there. They are all people. I'm not going to mention the names because the idea here, it's not about to say negative things about Goma. It's try to speak educationally the positive aspect of the Goma, that Goma is a very sophisticated and helpful school that can build our society. So therefore, we need to preserve it. And then the second department that it exists within Goma, it's called Health and Welfare, Surgery and Medicinal Plans. In Goma, there's no way that you can go to Komeng. I don't know today. You cannot use traditional medicine. No, you can't participate in surgery. I remember in the 2000, the traditional doctor were old men. They used to use a tipa or tipana or stuff like that. Today, I've heard that they are using razor. I don't know because I'm not quite sure whether it's true that they're using it. But in the past, around early 2000, in the mid 2000, they were using. And they were very healthy, those things. They were using sort of instrument, which is knife, by then to perform their task. There's the issue of health and welfare. Health and welfare is a very important issue within Goma, because if you don't take care of the children, initiates or even their guardians and their teachers, so that's compromise the entire Goma, because a healthy Goma needs healthy people. There's the issue of catering and food distributions. This is a very important thing, where the food are prepared by the elder women and given to young women who have attended female circumcision, and they'll take them to a certain place where they can then be collected by the teachers or those who are looking after the sibling, and they distribute to the food to the initiate in the Goma. And this food are shared. When you eat food in Goma, that there's the system of Goma is like, it's a very sophisticated. You don't eat alone, you eat as a group. You get my point? And you also know that as a man, that place like Goma, there's an infrastructure department, the one that is responsible for gathering resources to build lodge. When you build Goma lodge, you're quite different. You build by using natural resources, like branches of the trees, and you sleep together. You sleep in those. More than 15 people sleep in the same, or 10 or 5 people or 6 people will sleep in the same room. And then the pattern of sleeping is quite different to our normal sleep, whereby you can just walk up in the morning. No, you have to follow some rules. There's a rule and regulation within Koma. And the clothes that you wear, it's also important to remember that. And another thing is that the religion in Koma is a traditional African religion, and the ritual has to be performed. Before we had Koma, the Koma started, people will take traditional healer, will perform rituals, will do Baswara Koma, because if the Koma is not protected, or somebody who is very evil person can take advantage, or a child can run away from Koma. So it has to be protected using traditional healers who are capable, instead of using people who don't have knowledge about Koma. I understand that because of transformation of the society, changes within the society, we need to adapt. So those are the key departments that are familiar within the Koma structures. Now, we also have the very important department, which is social norms. There are norms and the justice within Koma. Like, for example, if you have to follow some rules within Koma. You can't just behaving in a certain way that will put somebody life in a misery or uncomfortable situation. And if you treat someone bad, or you commit any offense or abuse others, there will be people who are responsible for that. A person such as Mutshwara Pudi will then become as a mediator, will then apply a punishment. Mutshwara Pudi will come with to apply people know what I'm talking about here. He will come and administer punishment that will